In this video, we're going to explore how to make a histogram in views, which is based off of the bar chart that we have made in the past. To do so, we're going to use some data that comes from the historical performance of the stock market. Specifically, we're going to look at all of the returns averaged over every contiguous 5-year period that existed during the stock market history. This data can be seen in the leftmost column. Based off of this data, which we have 86 different values, I've looked at the maximum value that we can have, the minimum value for the return that we've observed. As I said, there was 86 of these different periods that are available. And then the rest of these are just something we'll talk about in class, having to do with how to choose step sides for construction of histograms. But based off of this data, what I've done is I have created 9 different bins, and I have calculated the middle position of these bins, and then finally the count that each one of these bins would have. And as I say, if you don't know how to make analyze data to make histograms like this is something we will talk about in class. But for now, let's just know that what we want to do is plot the bin count positioned in the bin mid. That's the middle position of the bin for our returns, and that will give us the histogram about the rate of returns. One thing I do want to say is I have expressed the rate of return not as percentage, but as a fraction. And so if we look at this cell here, G7, I'm saying that the rate of return is 0.14 of the investment, or what we might say instead is 14%. Okay, we have this data, and I already have shown you how to import data into views. So let's assume that we've taken this data and we have it imported into views. We can move into views then to make this histogram. In the views program, there's really no difference between a histogram and a bar chart, because all a histogram is a bar chart where the bars are made to touch one another, indicating that we have continuously divided up a variable, or we have divided up a continuous variable without gaps. And so what we need to do is insert a set of axes, as we've already seen this button up here. We need to then tell the program that we're going to be making a bar chart, which is a button over to the right. We're now set up to make a bar chart. What we want is the lengths of our bars to be the number in each bin. And so under lengths, I'm going to select the bin count. I just go down and I select bin count. As you can see, we already have a bar chart. There are 2 problems with the bar chart as it exists. First, it is not a histogram because the bars do not touch. So we need to eliminate this gap between bars in order to make it a histogram. The second is that the x values are not the rates of return that we're trying to plot. And so we need to be able to tell views, I want these bars to appear at the positions associated with the mid position of each bin, and then adjust these bars so there's no gap between them. So let's do that. First, we adjust the position using the properties for the bar chart. This is pretty straightforward. We just go to the positions, go down until we find the bin mid, and I'm saying I want each bar centered at that position. Selecting it, then changes the x-axis, as we can see. Now it runs from -0.1 to 0.3, or again, if we were thinking in terms of percentages, this would be from -10% to 30%. The x-axis is now correct, and what we need to do is reduce the spacing between the bars. That can be done in the formatting pane for the bar chart. In particular, what we're interested in is the bar fill and the group fill. In order to have the bars touch, both of these need to be set to fully filled, or instead of 3/4 and 90% filled, to 1. And as I hit enter, you'll see the bar width change. There's still a small gap. That has to do with the 10% of the group fill that we're not yet realizing. I change this to 1 as well and hit enter, and now our bars touch. And as you can see, we have a histogram, a well-formed histogram. We can now see that the distribution is slightly skewed, where we don't expect so high % return, but that on average, or maybe the most likely return, is somewhere around 11% in the stock market over a 5-year period of investment. At any rate, that's not as important now. We'll talk about analyzing data in the future, but for now you know how to insert data, construct it as a bar chart, and then turn that bar chart into a histogram.